Now, celebrating the first anniversary commemorating its Air Force's victory over India on February 27th last year, responding to Indian Air Force's aggression, Pakistan downed 2 fighter jets and arrested Wing Commander Abhinandan Varathaman. This report will now tell you more.
Air Chief Marshal Mujahid Anwar Khan addressed a special ceremony by Pakistan Air Force held in Islamabad. Anwar Khan said, last year on this day, Pakistan's Air Force showed its superiority and lethality over India. He said Pakistan is a peace-loving country but will not tolerate any misadventure against its sovereignty.
Prior to aggression last year, our national leadership had made it amply clear that no misadventure against Pakistan would ever go unresponded. Today, I reiterate that commitment and caution. To respond to the aggressor was our compulsion, but measured and calibrated response was entirely our choice. Make no mistake, PF when responds to irresponsible act, we may not always exercise restraint.
Pakistan Air Force also held a special air show in coastal city of Karachi, showing its professional and technological capability. The PF fighter planes JF-17 Thunder and F-16 participated in the air show and performed flying maneuvers. Political and military leadership, in addition to a large number of people from all walks of life, attended the show.
More in this bulletin. It has been 1 year since Pakistan shot down 2 Indian military jets and captured a pilot in a dogfight over Azad Jammu and Kashmir. The aerial attacks across the line of control were the first since the 1971 Indo-Pak War. More in this report.
In February last year, 40 Indian troops were killed in an attack in occupied Kashmir's Pulwama district. The attack was carried out by a Kashmiri citizen, but India jumped the gun and blamed Pakistan for the incident. Pakistan's civilian and military leadership vehemently denied the Indian propaganda, terming the attack a false flag operation. Facing immense domestic pressure, India launched airstrikes in the town of Balakot in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Pakistan's Air Force retaliated to the violation immediately, forcing IAF fighter planes to drop their payloads early. New Delhi claimed it targeted a terrorist training camp, but evidence showed its bombs only damaged a few trees. In the ensuing air battle, the PAF jets shot down 2 fighter jets and captured one of their pilots. However, Pakistan returned Indian pilot Abhinandan Varathaman as a peace gesture. But India continued to threaten the regional peace by revoking Kashmir's special status and violating the ceasefire along the LOC repeatedly. The situation between the two countries is still tense as Kashmiris are forced to live under an inhumane Indian curfew. Islamabad has repeatedly called on the international community to help stop the conflict from turning into an all-out war.
The Pakistan Army has held a media briefing marking the anniversary of Operation Swift Retort, which was Pakistan's befitting response to India's bombing of the town of Balakot this time last year. More in this report by Sumaira Khan.
The operation resulted in the downing of 2 Indian fighter jets and the capture of the Indian Air Force's Wing Commander Abhinandan Varathaman. Today, a monument has been built where Abhinandan's jet crashed and remains open to the public and international media. The Pakistan Army organized a tour of the site where they explained how they captured the pilot.
On 27 Feb 19, we observed intense aerial activity on the skies of our sector. Meanwhile, we just saw a jet coming down like a rock after an explosion, followed by a parachute which was descending downwards. So my commanding officer ordered me to move a QRF immediately and secure the site.
In an effort to maintain regional peace, Abhinandan was returned to India as a gesture of goodwill. But before that, the Pakistan Army nursed his injuries and gave him a taste of some Pakistani tea.
The QRF team brought the injured pilot to battalion headquarters where I was the medical officer. He was in a state of shock due to the fear, and his heart rate was fast, and he had lacerations on his face, cheeks, and on his head, and he was bleeding from the nose and from the face.
Unfortunately, tensions between Pakistan and India have remained high since the incident, with frequent ceasefire violations from India. The situation has deteriorated since 5th August 2019, when India illegally annexed occupied Kashmir. 1 year after India's unprovoked aggression against Pakistan, which was turned down by Pakistan's armed forces with full force, Pakistan still reiterates its firm resolve to give peace another chance, and said that its hope and efforts to give peace another chance should not be taken as act of cowardness. Reporting for Indus News, Sumaira Khan, Hura Village, Line of Control.
The Pakistan Air Force has unveiled all 4 missiles recovered from an Indian jet downed in February last year for violating the country's airspace. This report has details.
The Pakistan Air Force displayed the wreckage of the Indian Air Force's MiG-21 Bison, which was shot down by a Pakistani fighter jet. In a media briefing, Pakistan Air Force showcased the MiG-21 equipped with 4 missiles. The missiles were never fired, contradicting the Indian claim of shooting down Pakistan's F-16 warplane. Indian Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman, who was flying the jet, ejected himself and was captured by Pakistan. The Indian pilot praised the Pakistan Army for saving him from the locals just after his landing in Azad Kashmir.
I would like to put this on record, and I will not change my statement if I go back to my country also. The officers of the Pakistani Army have looked after me very well. They are thorough gentlemen, starting from the captain who rescued me from the mob and from his soldiers, and thereafter the officers into the unit which I was taken to. Okay. This is what I would expect my army to behave as, and I am very impressed by the Pakistani Army.
Pakistan released the Indian Wing Commander as a gesture of peace. Pakistan's military wing released Abhinandan's another video statement before his release.
Pakistani Army जो है वो बहुत ही professional.
The Pakistan Army is a very special service. I see peace in it. I've spent time with the Pakistan Army. I'm impressed. Indian media exaggerates a lot. It always gives ear to small things, adding fire and spices to it.
मिर्च लगा के बोलते हैं वो, उसमें लोग बहकावे में आ जाते हैं.
The release of Indian Wing Commander Abhinandan as a peace gesture was highly appreciated worldwide.
Pakistan's Foreign Office says Chinese President Xi Jinping will visit Islamabad soon. In a press brief, the office's spokesperson Aisha Farooqi said the schedule of Xi Jinping's visit is being finalized. The spokesperson said Islamabad appreciates China's steps to control the spread of coronavirus. She said the virus outbreak will not affect bilateral trade. She said federal and provincial governments are taking effective steps to prevent the virus from spreading in Pakistan. Talking about Doha deal, she said agreement signing between Taliban and the US is a positive development. Farooqi said Islamabad hopes the deal will lead to lasting peace and prosperity in Afghanistan. Pakistan's President Dr. Arif Alvi says the riots in Indian capital New Delhi are a prelude to Muslim genocide in the country. Speaking at a seminar in Islamabad, Alvi said minorities have been under a constant threat in India since 1947. Alvi said the time has proven Pakistan's founder Muhammad Ali Jinnah's prophecy that Hindus never accepted Muslims as part of one nation. He said Muslims in today's India are being mocked and told to go to Pakistan. The president said Pakistan understands the danger of society's polarization that leads to terrorism. He said Pakistan treats its minorities with respect and goes the extra mile to ensure their rights. Alvi said as Pakistan is striving for peace in the region, while India is constantly rooting for war. The president said India started tradition and nuclear weapons race in the region, and Pakistan was sucked into it to establish a balance of power. The death toll in riots during citizenship law protests in India's capital, New Delhi, has risen to 34. The opponents and supporters of the law are facing off against each other, leading to violent clashes. Over 250 have been wounded as Hindu radicals continue targeting mosques, Muslims' houses, and shops under the nose of the ruling BJP government. Expressing concern, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom asked India to take serious efforts to protect Muslims. In a press release, USCIRF said there are numerous reports of Delhi police not intervening to stop violence against Muslims. The U.S. has issued a travel advisory for India, asking Americans to exercise caution, calling for restraint. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he is very saddened by the reports of casualties in Delhi. International media has censured the violence against Muslims in India's capital city of New Delhi. 34 people are dead, while over 250 are injured in mob attacks on Muslims' houses, shops, and mosques. British newspaper The Independent shared a story of a Muslim beaten by Hindu radicals. Another UK newspaper, The Guardian, headlined it as the worst religious violence for decades in Delhi. The New York Times said New Delhi streets have turned into a battleground. Turkish media outlet TRT reported the clashes, saying Indian capital sees deadliest riots in decades. Qatar-based Al Jazeera said mosques set on fire during Delhi's worst violence. In China, another 29 people have died in the new coronavirus outbreak in the last 24 hours, as the toll tips over 2,700. Total cases of the virus have now exceeded 80,000 worldwide, with over 2,700 deaths. While the outbreak in mainland China appears to have waned, it is spreading at a fast pace in other countries. More in this report.
As the rising cases of the new coronavirus ring global alarm bells, governments are stepping up measures to contain the outbreak. Italy has put 55,000 people in quarantine in 11 towns, after deaths surged to 12, while the confirmed cases jumped to 400. Nearly 1,600 are now infected in South Korea, while 13 have died. Seoul and Washington have postponed their joint military drills.
The containment efforts of COVID-19 and the safety of ROK and U.S. service members were prioritized in making this decision. The decision to postpone training was initially raised by General Park Henry, Chairman of the ROK Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Robert Abe Abrams, Combined Forces Command, a United States Forces Korea commander, agreed to postpone the training.
In the Middle East, Iran registered the highest toll with 19 fatalities and 139 cases.
Our assessment is that we will likely see similar situations in other countries in Europe, and that the picture may, in the coming weeks, vary from country to country.
As the cases in Europe surge, Algeria, Brazil, and Pakistan have also reported their first coronavirus cases.
Saudi Arabia has temporarily suspended visas for the Umrah pilgrimage and visits to the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. In a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the suspensions are temporary, but gave no clue when it will end. The ministry has also stopped entry for tourists arriving from states where the novel coronavirus poses a risk. The government said the precautionary measures have been applied to prevent coronavirus arriving and spreading in the kingdom. Saudi Arabia has no cases of the virus, but 7 Saudis are among the coronavirus patients in Bahrain and Kuwait. Saudi Arabia hosts millions of Muslim visitors throughout the year, peaking with the Hajj pilgrimage. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says European countries have shown willingness to keep the 2050 nuclear deal alive. The minister said this after the 15th meeting of the JCPOA Joint Commission in Vienna. Talking to media, Araghchi said all remaining parties reaffirmed the importance of this deal. He said Iran is fully prepared to reverse measures that apparently violate Tehran's commitments, but only if the other side reciprocates. Meanwhile, the EU said all participants called the deal a key element of the global nuclear non-proliferation architecture. Representatives from China, France, Germany, Russia, and United Kingdom and Iran attended the meeting. Turkey says 2 of its soldiers have been killed in an attack by Syrian forces in northwestern Idlib province. The defense ministry says Turkish forces destroyed 114 Syrian government targets in response. The ministry said 3 Syrian tanks were also seized and an air defense missile system was destroyed in retaliation. Meanwhile, Turkish-backed Syrian rebels claim to have recaptured the strategic town of Sarakep. But the Syrian forces have denied the assertion, saying they successfully repelled the rebel attack. Earlier, government forces said they have captured 15 villages and the tactical town of Kafarud from the rebels in Idlib. Meanwhile, talks between Russia and Turkey are underway in Ankara to reduce the rising tensions in northeastern Syria. The US has sanctioned the head of Iraq's Kataib Hezbollah over a rocket attack that killed an American contractor at a military base last December. In a statement, the State Department said the curbs on Ahmad al-Hamidawi are meant to stop him from carrying out more attacks. It listed Ahmad al-Hamidawi as a specially designated global terrorist. This freezes any US assets he may hold. American citizens are now prohibited from conducting transactions with him. The State Department also accuses the militia of involvement in sniper attacks against protesters in Baghdad that killed over 100 people. The UN says the first round of political talks on the Libya peace process has opened in Geneva. The announcement follows the refusal of Libya's UN-recognized government to attend the meeting. UN spokesperson Ria LeBlanc said he had no information on the delegations taking part. Earlier, the UN mission for Libya said the political talks would begin with members of parliament of independent figures. The political discussions are taking place after the completion of a second round of UN-sponsored military talks between the warring factions. The UNSMIL said both sides agreed to present a draft agreement to their respective leaderships. It said both sides had agreed to meet again next month. Tunisia's new coalition government has won a vote of confidence in the parliament. This follows more than 4 months of political wrangling since elections. Members of parliament voted 129 to 77 in favor of Prime Minister Elise Fakhfe's team after a debate which lasted more than 14 hours. The vote comes just days after Fakhfeh announced a new alliance with Ennahda, the biggest bloc in the legislative body. Ennahda said with 53 seats in 217-member parliament, it will only join a unity government that brings all parties together. Last week, President Kais Saied threatened to dissolve the parliament and called for an early election if the new government failed to win a confidence vote. A plan to use snow collected in Japan's mountains to cool the 2020 Olympics venues this summer has hit a snag. Officials say this winter snowfall in the country could be the lowest on record. More in this report.
Authorities in Niigata Prefecture, north of Tokyo, have been trying to collect and store snow so it can be carried by train to the Olympic soccer and basketball venues. The project will cost nearly $500,000. There's one problem though. A mild winter with very little snow, not even enough to cover popular ski resorts, could derail the authorities' plans.
It seems like this season is the worst on record for Japan when it comes to the lack of snow. There's only some snow in Shigakogan and Hokkaido's Furano, but apart from that, all the other places are bad.
With Tokyo's summer temperatures often rising to 40 degrees Celsius, organizers want to use mist sprays at winter stations to refresh spectators. At ski resorts around the country, snow depths are well below average, and higher temperatures mean any of the white stuff that does fall quickly melts away, forcing some areas to bring it by truck.
It is the first time in 30 years that there hasn't been enough snow. Because the temperatures are high, the snow melts, it hardens, and then it makes it icy. We can't even ski down to the bottom.
The Japan Meteorological Agency says this winter is the warmest on record. Japan's winter that isn't is part of a wider pattern of climatic change driven by carbon emissions.
European stock markets have plummeted as the rapid spread of coronavirus continues to dominate market sentiment. Major stocks have conceded value as investors have shifted to safe haven stocks. London's FTSE 100 is trading nearly 3% lower as Standard Chartered stocks slipped nearly 3%. Frankfurt's DAX and CAC 40 in Paris are trading 2.5% lower. In Asia, Nikkei 225 lost over 2%, while Seoul's Kospi closed over 1% lower. Bucking up, Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained a fraction, shedding early losses. Shanghai Composite closed marginally higher as coronavirus-led daily death toll falls. Meanwhile, international Brent crude oil price have lost over 1%, falling for fifth consecutive day, lowest since January 2019. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.